So we've just seen reports of Luiz Ortiz calling out Moses Itauma. Obviously, Luiz Ortiz recently fought this past weekend and he won via first round knockout. But Luiz Ortiz is 46, 47, 48. I think he's 46, sorry. A guy who's, like I said, 46, pushing 50, wants to fight the youngest up-and-coming prospect in the heavyweight division. The most exciting, the most hype that's been around for a very long time, especially in Britain. I know AJ had some hype, but AJ's hype compared to Moses' hype now is nothing. Moses is way more hype than AJ ever did, right? Until AJ become world champion, of course. But as a prospect, it's crazy. It's a crazy build-up, and he's been putting on these good performances. And obviously, Moses himself is coming off a first-round knockout over, what's his name, Dillian Whyte, in very impressive fashion, in my opinion. And you look at Dillian Whyte, you look at Luiz Ortiz, both guys are probably as cooked as each other in terms of these guys shouldn't really be boxing anymore, and they certainly shouldn't be boxing the likes of Moses Itauma, who's so quick, so powerful, so dangerous, mixes it up so well and puts those combinations together. Unlike many guys in the heavyweight division. You look at the guys who can put combos together like that. Dubois is not capable of doing it. Fury and Usyk are. So that already is putting him in elite company. Joseph Parker is somewhat when he wants to be. But yeah, he's already in elite company, and Luiz Ortiz is far removed from that company. Now, there was a time around the times, Luiz Ortiz was fighting Deontay Wilder for the first time, that Luiz Ortiz was regarded as a serious sort of name in the heavyweight division and regarded as one of the best boxers to not have a world championship in the heavyweight division at that time. There was talks of him fighting AJ, but apparently AJ didn't want that fight. He was a guy who doesn't make a lot of sense for guys to fight. He was a nightmare matchup for a lot of guys where he was, at that time, even then he was old. To be fair, I'll say he was young, but this wasn't even 10 years ago. This was, 7 years ago. And even then he would have been pushing 40. But he felt like that them times he was more of a younger prospect, which is crazy to say. He was pushing 40 at that time. But like I said, it was a nightmare matchup for a lot of the top names at heavyweight. But he's so far removed from that. He took some damage in both Deontay Wilder losses, and also lost to Andy Ruiz as well. I believe it was a loss or a draw. I think it was a loss. There was a loss to Andy Ruiz. And since then, he's just fought cans. And in those times when he fought cans, when we're looking at that last performance, where he looked, old and slow, but he got the first round knockout, and that's the thing. That's the thing in boxing, particularly at heavyweight. You're only realistically 2 or 3 good performances away from a big fight, right? And this for Ortiz, in my opinion, would be the biggest fight of biggest fight he could get. A Moses fight, because he couldn't get anyone bigger than Moses. Usyk, Dubois, Fury, they'd laugh at him. Those guys, AJ, probably not. And then you get to your Moses Itaumas. Your Ajit Cabellos probably wouldn't want to fight him. Maybe for Ajit Cabello, because Cabello seems like the type of guy who's willing to fight anyone. And so, to be fair, so does Joseph Parker. So from that sense, they probably would. But in terms of a business point of view, they probably shouldn't. And they could get bigger fights. But Luiz Ortiz, he'd be looking to get those would be big fights for him. Nonetheless, he wouldn't be unlikely to get those sorts of names. Moses is the biggest name he can get. Is what I'm saying. Moses is the biggest name he can get. And to be fair, I sort of rate him for doing it. I sort of rate Luiz Ortiz for calling him out. Because, he's old. We all know he's old. He wants to get the biggest payday he can get. So fair play to him. Because he's definitely not getting big paydays against the guys he's currently fighting. That's for absolute sure. He fought a guy called Philip Penson, I think. His record was 8-4 at the time. And he stops him in the first round. Luiz Ortiz is not getting a big payday for that fight. So he wants a big payday. Because he's probably got bills. And he knows this is going to be damn near the end of his career. So he needs to cash out. Cash in and cash out. Right? But yeah, I'll be curious to know what you guys think of this fight. Do you think this fight could actually get made? Luiz Ortiz v Moses Itauma? Or do you think Moses would just be aiming too high? But I'm low-key a fan of this fight because I do like the opportunity for Moses to slowly build himself into that next guy at heavyweight. You don't need to be knocking out a washed Dillian Whyte and then fighting Usyk. No, you can fight a Wash Dillian White. You can fight a Wash Luiz Ortiz. You know, you can do these things. You don't need to be rushed. You can fight a Fabio Wardley. You could even fight for the British title. You could fight. I mean, at that point, maybe it would be seen as a bit of a step down, but still, in my opinion, the British title is a very prestigious title. In my opinion, still the British Heavyweight Championship. But yeah, so that to say, I'd be curious to know what you guys think of this fight. What do you think of Moses? You know, even doing this call out in general, and yeah, let me know in the comments below. Another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest in the bag, and I'm out. Peace.